Okay, we are back. This is Paul Beyer with the 12 for 12 show here. I am joined by a very, very special guest. I've been looking forward to talking to this gentleman since we got him on the show, and that is Joe Tafoya from the Volume 12 initiative, I'm calling it, but the Volume 12 is the group that went out and organized the Guinness Book World Records noise record that we achieved back at the 49ers game, 136.6 decibels for the 12s. And I'm real excited to talk to Joe. He's an ex-NFL player. He had a stint here with the Seahawks, 2005. He was on that team. And this is a guy that has some knowledge. He knows the league. He also he understands the 12s. He understands the community and what we bring to the table. So, Joe, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, thanks for the intro. I appreciate that. You
bet. Well, I guess for some of the people that didn't have a chance to hear all your background and, hear some of the pieces that a lot of the different news organizations around Seattle were able to do on your behalf, why don't you share with everybody kind of your story and, a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, right on. I graduated from the University of Arizona and was drafted in the 7th round by Tony Dungy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Broke my ankle in my first preseason game, was released, picked up by the Chicago Bears, played 3 years there, defensive lineman, defensive tackle, defensive end. Got to go to the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, against Donovan McNabb. We lost that one. 2005 was my first year with the Seahawks. I got a chance to go to the Super Bowl with them. Came back the next year, 2006, had another outstanding year, and then I went off and I played for the Arizona Cardinals, and I broke my foot, tore a bunch of ligaments. I got 8 years in the NFL, which is an eternity, and I've sustained a significant amount of injuries and concussions. So, I went out with an injury, which generally happens to guys that are journeymen, such as myself. You go out, you give it your all, and then you're done. And when I was done, I'd always had a knack for marketing. So guys would come to me with their issues with their agent, or whether they were working on some kind of a real estate deal or whatever. Just one of those guys in the locker room that people can always trust. And I made a nice, smooth transition from football into the business world, just taking all of those same attributes, what made me really good in professional football, and transferring those things over into the business world. I went out and I bought a technology company. It was a software development company. I sold that off, made some decent money, and partnered up with another former Hawk who also played in Canada, Mr. Kerry Carter. And he and I run the marketing firm Jump It Media. And we hosted the Richard Sherman softball game. We've hosted about 60 different events in and around the Seahawks community. And Volume 12 gave us a call and said, hey, we want to try and really relaunch this brand in the community and do something cool. Can you help us? And that's what happened. At 3 a.m. one day, I had this idea that I wanted to find out who held the record for loudest crowd roar in a stadium with Guinness Book of World Records. And I saw that it was owned by some soccer club out in Turkey, Galatasaray, and they were doing it as kind of a marketing promotional stunt to launch Turk Telecom Stadium, a $150 million facility. And I thought, that record belongs here in the U.S., and who better to try and do this than Seahawks, and a great way to reintroduce Volume 12 into the world. Took that idea, and I took it over to the Seahawks, and they said, absolutely not. We're not interested, for multiple reasons. There's liability issues. We're not sure we can do it. Why bother, Joe? You're going to take away some of the credibility of the 12s. And I said, bullshit. I want to try and do this for the fans, and the fans deserve some kind of a title to go along with their name. So they said, all right, well, we think it should be an organic fan thing, so we're going to stay out of it and focus on the game. I said, great. And we went out and generated all kinds of PR and media internationally with the type of fan base that we have. They're just amazing. And it helps when you're having a winning season and a really exciting team, too. So, yeah, that's what we did. That's kind of the breakout story of Volume 12.
So I hadn't heard that. So the Seahawks really didn't get behind it, and I can understand that, what you said, the liability issues and whatnot. But, you guys did do a tremendous job of getting the word out. I mean, it was definitely around here. Everybody was talking about it before that game. Well, I guess the one thing I wanted to know about, and I had this question right away, I'm like, it was such a great marketing buzz. I'm surprised the NFL doesn't put noise meters in every stadium, based on the fact that they're not, they're not doing the delay thing. If paces are too loud, guys can't hear it. They stopped that a few years ago. So, I'm surprised that the NFL hasn't embraced that. Do you have anything? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, that could actually change. That could change based on the relevance of the topic today. Crowd factor. Crowd noise, the crowd impact of the game has a lot to do with the game. Everybody talks about home field advantage, and I experienced that in 2005 during the NFC Championship game. Was a moment during that game when the quarterback could not hear, he could not relay and he could not communicate the calls to his receivers, to his tight ends, to his offensive line. A couple of games before that, when we played against the Giants, they had a record amount of false starts during that game. And I recognized the impact that the crowd had on the game, and I saw that the organization was really promoting it and trying to do everything they could to get the fans excited. But you're right, up to this point, it hasn't really played a role in the NFL and in the stadium the way that it could have. This year is the first year they're allowing video prompting of the crowds to get everybody excited. So without that, there was a rule change for 2013 season. Stadiums, organizations can prompt the fans on when to get loud. That opened the door for this idea and initiative so that it really was able to take hold. But again, the Seahawks, they wanted it to be an organic fan thing, which it ended up being. And the only downfall of that is we're not sure how many people knew what was going on. We did all we could to promote it. But in the stadium, people were wondering what was going on or if we had broken the record, and there was really no official communication other than me walking around with a big sign saying we had done it and tweeting out and posting on Facebook page. It ended up being something that the fans really took ownership of and pride in. And so when the Kansas City Chiefs organization got behind it and did the whole video prompting, they even, during their game against Oakland, put up on those gigantic video boards, "Make Seattle hear you." So now
I did not know that.
There's this fan rivalry that's happening outside of the game. The game's happening on the field. The fans are actively participating in the game, whereas before you're watching the game. You're not actively part of it. You're not a participant. And I think that this is a significant moment for, in the history of NFL, in the history of professional sports, where fans are actually part of the game and can actively participate. It's a fan movement, and it started right here in Seattle.
So with that being said, and then this is a question I've been wanting to ask you, in particular to the NFL, have you asked them if is it even legal to put decibel meters in every stadium, or is that something they've said no, we don't want anything to do with?
It's legal. The stadium and the officials, the organization, they decide on what they want to do. When you walk into the stadium, you've signed a liability waiver. You're waiving your liability because on the back of that ticket it says you're responsible for any and all of your own actions inside of the stadium. Okay? That's a waiver. You buy the ticket, you buy in. That paired up with the idea that if you do something stupid outside of the rules of the stadium, you're going to get tossed out. That's enough. That there's enough there for an organization to say, we did our part. We warned you. Now, inside of the stadium, fans yell. they scream, they get loud. They're going to do it anyway. Now, what we were really trying to do is we were trying to promote the idea that this is going to happen. You're going to do it anyway, whether you're at a rock concert or at work at Boeing, you're in the subway, wherever you are. It's loud. It's a loud world. Just do it safely. Put some earplugs in. Plug your ears during the loud moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not something that really needs to be, the fans understand that when they walk into the stadium. It's going to be loud. Either you're wearing hearing protection or you're assuming the risk. So the point that you're trying to make, you have to have a very specific and precise measuring device down on the field to accurately capture sound levels, decibel levels. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, and if it's not a standard across the NFL, then that's why you bring in Guinness, because they moderate the whole thing. There has to be a certain set of rules, like it has to be 2 meters away from the nearest participant. It has to be 2.5 meters off the ground. It has to be a specific kind of device. If you don't do that across the NFL, then anybody can just, throw up whatever number they want.
So in regards to the Chiefs, do we have an answer for them? Are you organizing anything? What's the next step here?
Yeah. So I've been in communication with the Seahawks, and I think that they're, interested in supporting the next attempt and, really getting involved. But we haven't really come to a conclusion. We're soft circling some games. I mean, there's some games that make a lot of sense on there for the world record attempt, and then there's some that don't. So I don't have an answer for you right now. I'm more than happy to organize another attempt, but I need some cooperation this time around.
Totally understand.
Right.
That being said, and real quick, I want to, before we end the whole Volume 12's story, I wanted to go back because, I've gone to many games. I've been a season ticket holder, and the reality is that I know how loud it is in that stadium, but you were a player in that stadium. And I know for a fact that one of the loudest games that I've ever attended was that 2005 championship game against the Panthers. You were on the field. Have you ever heard noise like that in any other stadium? Because I've been to other professional stadiums, college stadiums. I've never heard anything like that.
No, not even close. Not even against the 49ers, which is why I think a second attempt would shatter all hopes for any other team to do it. Now, Kansas City, when they broke our record, just to go back to this point real quick, they did it at the very end of the game, 30 seconds left to go. They hadn't come close to the world record. But what they did was put something up on the boards identifying where the microphone and everything was. And the stadium had already 2/3 emptied out. So they've got the rest of the people surrounding the microphone making one final attempt. And again, it's official, in my opinion, should have not allowed that to happen. Called it, just said, never mind. It's over. There's 30 seconds left. You guys didn't do it. Good job. Good work. But they didn't. And that, to me, says that, look, hey, Guinness is in this because they sell books. And somebody has to officiate these things. But unfair because we were recording an everyday game, a loud game. It was just happening. Not everybody knew what was going on. It wasn't prompted. It was just a loud game. They
were just, exactly.
They manufactured the whole thing. So I say I call bogus on that. I throw the flag. That's my opinion on the whole thing. I'm very passionate about it because I put a lot of time and effort and money into the whole thing personally. So.
Oh, you bet. Hey, Joe, trust me, we're all on your side here. It was awesome. From our perspective, it was awesome.
Well, thank you. It shouldn't be up to me, though. It should be up to the fans, and it should be up to the organization. I've been polling on our Facebook page, and there's a 90% interest in redoing it again. So I'll take that to the Seahawks, and I'll show them. And, hey, you never know.
Hey, well, we, as being the show that, there's other Seahawk podcasts and radio, shows out there. But as a fan, really true emotional bond here, the 12s, we want that record. And I know that everyone is behind you. So thank you, one, for being the guy in charge of this, and know that we all are all on your side, okay? I don't know if anyone is.
Well, yeah. No, I'm honored. And it was that game you were just describing in 2005, which set me on this path because it was the loudest game I've ever been to.
It was unreal. Mm-hmm. I've been saying it a million times. I've been in that stadium so many times. But I will say this. When Tony Romo fumbled the snap on that infamous play, that's actually the loudest I've ever heard that stadium, that peaked, because it was a moment in time where it went from super loud to another level that I'd never heard before. And I would just mention
there too for that
infamous. Yeah, you bet you were. Okay, so let's. If you got, do you have some time to talk about the current season and talk about the Hawks? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure. Let's keep going.
Okay. I was going to take a quick break, but why don't we get into this? Why don't you give us your? We're talking about yesterday's game, obviously. Why don't you give us your perception of what you saw from a former player and analyst position? What you saw yesterday?
Okay, I saw a Rams team that was fully tuned in to stopping the run. And when they started doing that successfully, it ended a lot of the game plan. We were going to run Marshawn Lynch and run him down their throat. And when that didn't happen, I'm not sure that there was a backup game plan for that. So I saw an 8-man front that was fully loaded and really some talented corners out there. They have a number of first-round, second-round talent on that team. That's not the problem. The problem over there is something else. You can't quite put your finger on it, but they have the talent. The two defensive ends, Robert Quinn and Long, in my opinion, are two of the best in the NFL. So you got them going against backup offensive linemen. And there's nothing wrong with McQuiston. There's nothing wrong with Bowie, but they were facing somebody that was just better than them. And that happens. From time to time in the NFL, you're going to play somebody. I used to practice against Walter Jones every day. He kicked my ass every day. Mm-hmm. There's just people that have your number.
Was that because Walter had just such, not just the leverage, but he had width, right? I mean, because I played offensive line, but I played center in college, okay? And so I didn't have to worry about that lateral, speed rusher on my left or right side. I mean, you understand that. So give the audience a little perspective on when I talk about how hard it is to block those guys, what it's like.
Well, Walter was a special guy. He had foot speed to, anytime somebody beat him, he was able to recover. And he was as strong as there's ever been anybody in the NFL. And he was smart. So those three things, that's the trifecta for an offensive lineman. Everybody talks about arm length and the ability to punch. It's not that. Foot speed is number one. So he was able to recover. Mm-hmm. The speed rushers that they line up in those wide nines, you see them get down in that frog stance with all four hands on the ground. Mm-hmm. Their job is to get up the field and turn the corner. The faster they turn the corner, the more chance they have for a sack. And when you don't have the ability to get to the outside, which is a lot of our game with Russell Wilson at this point, where he's running those boots, he's running that read option. That's tough on him. So, in my opinion, they were fully tuned in, and let's give credit where credit's due. They kicked our ass up front. Having said that, we still found a way to win the game. So I think that people are overreacting. I think I've heard everybody starting to get down the bandwagon effect. Your team doesn't do all that great. We freaking won the game, and you won it in a fashion on the road where it was difficult. There were a lot of challenges involved with that game, offense, defense, both. But we still found a way to rally. Special players made some special plays in that game. That built character. So don't get too down on the Seahawks. That was, a little bit of a lull for us. But, you can't say that the next team that comes to face us that has any kind of talent is going to kick our ass. That's not true. We faced some very talented offensive linemen, defensive linemen that we've played just well against. And we're only getting better. Percy Harvin's coming back. Eventually we're going to get Giacomini back. Unfortunate about Sidney Rice, but hey, next man up.
Right. And I said, I kind of alluded to that same, belief in the beginning of the show where I was trying to calm everybody down by saying, look, the reality is that we've all, whether it was in work or in a sporting event or just any type of competitive situation, we've gone out there and made all the mistakes in the world, and then still everything ended up working out. And that's essentially what took place yesterday. It was I called it a statistical anomaly that, it just, things like this happen. You can't, last week, look what we did to Arizona. Everyone was talking about how we're the best team in the league everywhere, and every pundit and whatnot. But, we faced a kind of, like you said, a perfect storm of, we had our two backup tackles were completely overmatched against two all-pro quality defensive ends, and it was just a perfect storm of bad things. So, I watched McQuiston trying to block long. He just didn't have the lateral quickness to do it. I mean, it was simple.
No,
and we saw it last week a little bit as well.
Sometimes, like I said, you're just going to face somebody that's not always going to be like that. But you will face people that can beat you. And they can beat you, and they recognize that they can beat you, and they'll go back to that same move that worked. And if that doesn't work, they'll try something else. And 3 sacks in one game for anybody is a career game. They had 2 guys that had 3 sacks in one game. So, hats off to Russell Wilson for really, shouldering the blame for a lot of it. It wasn't his fault. So, hey, nothing's wrong. We're fine. Darryl Bevel, everybody that's on your butt right now, you shake them off. The Legion of Boom stepped up again. So I say don't worry. I say the thing that, you and I should be focusing on right now, if this is 12s for 12s, look at the turnout that we've had over the last 2 away games. The 12th man, the 12s that show up to these games, I'm watching every day on our Facebook page, Official Volume 12. We've got almost 60,000 people on here. They've really taking ownership in being a fan base around the league that's recognized as somebody to follow. You want to be just like the 12s. You want to be just like the Seahawks fans, where they're loud. They have a lot of pride. They invade your city. They're good. Nobody's getting drunk and falling down on the streets and fighting. They're waving the flags. They come into your city, they buy your beer, they drink, they party with you, but at the end of the day, they're dedicated Seahawks fans. Good for them. It brings so much pride to our organization, to our city, to our fan base to see those people that travel and wave their flags, their 12s, wear their jerseys, paint their faces, and go out to other people's tailgates and party with them and show them, look, this is the 12th man. These are the fans that we've raised here in Seattle. So that's what we should be talking about, I think.
Hey, I'm with you. And, it was funny. I was at the 2006 game in Soldier Field where we went to overtime. You guys took them to OT. And I traveled out to that game with 7 of my good friends. So, and that, you're right. When you're an enemy combatant and you're on the field, but we're out, we're in the stadium, we're wearing all our gear. You obviously get all the gruff and the speech and this and that, but at the end of the day, you also get a lot of respect. Many people come up to you and just say, God, it's so cool you came out here. Where are you from in Chicago? No, I'm from Seattle. I flew all the way out here. Oh, really? That's awesome. You get that feedback, and I think all the Seattle fans that are traveling now, and it seems like it's like you said, it's organic. It's just happening. We need to keep that up, and it's awesome that you guys are definitely talking about it and getting the word that it's something that builds the brand of not just the commercial brand, but it builds the community brand. I think that's really the important thing. So, hey, let's talk about one of our other topics here. I think one of the big ones was Golden Tate and the taunting thing. I'd love to get your, it was an 80-yard touchdown. It was an amazing play. I mean, it looked like the cornerback had position and he was going to come make that reception or the interception, and then he came over the top of him, literally jumped out of his shoes, little guy here, and made that play. And then the taunting, obviously. What's your opinion of what took place there?
I know Golden Tate personally, and I know what type of a person he is. He's very passionate. He's very real and down to earth. And you're going to get those type of real, down-to-earth moments that come through on the field as well. And, hey, people make mistakes. He went up and made a hell of a play on that ball. Then he ran, 80 yards? It was an 80-yard touchdown.
80-yard touchdown,
I would be so excited I wouldn't even know what to do. But At the end of the day, you do have to be smart about it. And a 15-yard penalty in a game like that, you really can't afford. Now, in the end, it didn't really affect anything. So I'm sure Pete Carroll went and had a little discussion with him. And, everybody's – I don't like to look for the negative in anything. I like to look for the positives. And the positive in this situation is that he's owned up to it. He's already said, hey, Coach Carroll showed me why this wasn't a good idea. I recognize that. Move on. And so I think we should all have the same approach as Pete Carroll. We think it was kind of silly that he did that, but you know what? Let's focus on the positive. What a play. Gave us most of the yardage for the whole game. Or, whoever had Russell Wilson for their fantasy quarterback was happy with that one play, regardless of what Golden Tate did at the end of it. So, you got to play with passion, though. In the NFL, if you don't have the heart, you don't have the passion, the drive to try and win and compete every single play, every single down, whether it's in practice or in the game. I mean, shoot, we're in the fans. We're in the stands competing against other organizations.
Right.
That's Pete Carroll mantra, always compete. So when you try and really, harp on somebody, he didn't do what Des Bryant did. That's disruptive. That's horrible for not only the organization, the game, your teammates. You don't want to see that. What he did was, he taunted a little bit, made a mistake, but you know what? He's not that type of person. So until he shows us otherwise, I think everybody should support him and move on. It's not that serious.
I had a poll on my website right after it happened. I put it up and I just said, hey, what do you think? And the majority of people really, truly, I guess they were entertained by it, but it was like what you said. They're like, hey, it's over with. And what most people like to hear was that he owned up to it right away. And this is an educated guy. He went to Notre Dame. I mean, it's not some stupid guy out there not knowing what he's doing. He really is a smart, very good talker. Guy knows he's eloquent. He knows how to say things. And I was glad he did that as well. The one thing I've seen him do is that this has kind of become a habit, though. I don't know if you remember the return against Arizona last week. He did the turnaround kind of a la Marshawn Lynch, Saints game, beast mode run. And I just hope that it's not, because I know what you're saying. As a former player, I understand that you get so into the competing aspect, especially with a great coach like Pete Carroll, you are truly, you get to an emotional level internally where it's almost like the rest of the world's blurred out, and you're literally living in that moment, and you have to look for a way to release it, and that's what he did. But how do you as a player stem that, I guess? That's the question, because I understand what you're saying about that emotional level.
Yeah, and I hope it was that. Let me try and turn things in a little bit of a different direction here and get you to maybe just think a little bit. If it's true that was a passion thing and, he wasn't really thinking, that's one thing. But if you did that and you were thinking this might end up on SportsCenter and people might talk about this play for a long time and it's a business decision, I don't like that at all. I think that's selfish, and I don't think that that's what happened. But you do have to think, this is the day and age where social media and shows like yours, they are able to keep topics alive for a lot longer than what they do on SportsCenter. But SportsCenter brings things to relevance, brings, those Monday night plays that could make or break somebody's career. So a guy like Golden Tate, who's up for a contract in the next year or two, he's saying, look at me. That if it's a business decision, I can understand it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't think it was either. I think it was that, like you said before, just that emotional moment, and he just got caught up in it. I've been there. I've got caught up in it myself, and you make a mistake and you own up to it, like you said. So, well, let's get off this topic. Let's go to the next one, and then after this, we'll wrap up with you. And again, thanks so much for being on, Joe. The next one I wanted to talk about was Russell Wilson, and in being that it's Russell Wilson, the biggest thing going into this week was the fumbles, and he obviously didn't move the ball, so I really don't want to focus on that. But we talked about it and touched on it briefly, that Russell was sacked, even though he was sacked 7 times, was still able to hold on to the ball. It was obviously something that was coached during the week. They talked about it. I know Pete Carroll mentioned it in his press conference post-game. He mentioned it this morning with Brock and Danny on the 710 show. Do you believe that one of the great aspects of Russell Wilson is the fact that he's able to be coached?
When you meet him, he just immediately exudes leader. And for me, a great leader has to know how to follow. He has to know how to be coached, and then he has to know how to lead. And so he possesses all of those qualities. And to your point, if I can teach my quarterback something in 1 week, he can get it fixed, that's special. Now, I don't know, maybe he was tucking the ball a little bit early. It seemed like his timing was just a little bit off, and that could be the hearing footsteps effect. But he definitely made an extra effort in protecting the ball. So there were some times when I thought maybe he could have lost it, or maybe he actually could have gotten rid of it a little bit early. But those turnovers, they kill you. And you see that the turnovers for the Rams ended up being their demise. And, when you have a quarterback that's that heady in those moments, look out. I mean, you can only get better from there.
I'm shocked. I looked at the numbers today. His QBR was 117 for the game. He actually increased his QBR to 99.7 for the season after that performance. Yeah. I was shocked when I saw that, but it obviously goes to how that formula works. We're gonna end it. We're gonna end it here for you, Joe. But what I want you to do is take a second here to give everybody all your Twitters and where to get in touch with you, where to follow you, the Facebooks, all that kind of stuff. And again, thank you so much for being on and really good time talking with you about the Hawks and the 12 topics.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Anybody that's supporting the fan base and doing what you're doing, I mean, you're not getting paid for this. You're just doing it because you've got a passion for it, and I want to support that. I'm at Joe Tafoya on Twitter. Follow me there. And Official Volume 12 is our Facebook page. I've also launched the LOB Seattle, Legion of Boom Seattle. That's a trademark that Volume 12 now owns, and we're working directly with the guys from Legion of Boom to get some merchandise and stuff out there. So really exciting time for me personally because I'm growing with the team and, just trying to really be supporting in the community and do everything that I can to represent not only Seahawks but professional football players in a positive light. So thanks for the time, man, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Hey, Joe, thank you again, and really know this. As a fan, we're totally behind not only you, but we're also behind the initiative, and we're behind the players 150%. So even there's a couple of loud people out there that might say something, those aren't the voices. The voices are here talking to you right now. And please, everybody, follow Joe Tafoya, all the different areas, Volume 12s and Facebook and Google+. I know you're all over the place. So, and there's the what's that about page that has all your info on it? Why don't you give everybody that, because I think that's a great way to.
About me. It's just a website. I try and be as easily accessible as possible for not only fans or friends or businesses. I like to really be out in the community, and some people call me a politician, whatever. But I'll get out there, and you ask me to do your shows, I had no problem doing it. So I'm easily accessible.
Well, you're the man, Joe. Thanks so much, and. Cool. Let's keep this thing rolling, and we'll go get that record back. And thanks again for helping us do it. Okay.
Right on, Paul. All right, take care, man.
All right. Have a good night, Joe.